Yeah, no, I 100% agree. What do you think, like in reference to the economy? Because Joe Biden, I feel like every time he has a press conference, he's telling people that the economy is doing great. Of course, we know this is not really the case, but he says they've created all these new jobs, but they never tell you what those jobs are. They don't say if they're full time, if they're permanent, if these are temp positions, contract, etc. If those jobs offer benefits, full time benefits, they're not really giving a lot of details and specifics.
Yeah.
If Joe Biden, so far, he has not announced he's definitely running for reelection. I think they're supposed to do that this month. If he does not run for reelection,
I can't imagine that. I think he will, but whatever. Go on. Sorry.
if he does not run for reelection, who do you think should run, and do you think they should run through the Democratic Party?
Oh man, I think you should run. That's what I think. I think. Yeah, I mean, if you're into it, I don't know. I'm not. It's such a disaster. Pete Buttigieg. I mean, all these people. Oh man, it's like, I don't know. I'm very demoralized and disillusioned with electoral politics, and I'm not thinking about it that much. I supported Bernie Sanders, and I was very disappointed about how that went, and the fact that he didn't extract more from Joe Biden. That he just, and same with Hillary Clinton, that he succumbed to the terror of the Republicans and just handed over his votes and all his power to them. So I don't know who should run, and in a way, I think it doesn't matter that much. Of course, it does matter, but there's a way in which it doesn't matter that much. You look at the presidency of Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was actually a pretty progressive president in terms of some of his policy achievements. He wasn't a progressive person, and he wasn't a progressive president. He was a conservative, anti-Semitic, bigoted, right-wing Republican. But he was under a lot of pressure from the left globally and domestically. And as a result, he provided over the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, over the Mine Safety Administration, the creation of OSHA. He experimented with universal basic income. He signed a ban on biological weapons. I mean, it goes on and on, right? He took steps towards began to wind down the Vietnam War. I mean, that's sort of, he could have done that sooner, and he bombed the smithereens out of North Vietnam and while prolonging those negotiations. So I wouldn't put that in that category of his accomplishments. But the point being that, Richard Nixon did some really progressive things, not because he was progressive, but because there were movements that were like, you've got to do something about this, just to take the environmental stuff, right? I mean, part of what creating the EPA was about, which cost a lot of money for American industry to clean up their act. They did not want to do that. It was expensive. It cut into their bottom line. Part of why he did that was because there was enormous pressure about how filthy the environment was. I was raised in New England. I remember all the streams were filthy. They were disgusting. Now they're clean. Why is that? Bald eagles. When I was a kid, bald eagles were something that you read about in first grade because they were in Alaska, right? Now there are bald eagles all up and down the Connecticut River in New England, feeding off of fish that have returned. Why is that? That's because of the laws that the EPA was created to enforce. The Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, all those laws that Republicans rail against, they're not exaggerating. Some of these Republicans, like the incredible imposition of these laws, is like they're really powerful laws. They're great laws, Unfortunately, they're just not enforced vigorously enough. But so Nixon enabled all that to happen, not because he was a good guy, not because he was progressive, but because he was getting pressure from environmentalists, but also he was getting pressure on all fronts, and he could try and derail the class rebellion. I mean, there's massive wildcat strikes by labor in the late 60s and early 70s. General Electric in New England, we're both in New England right now. You're in Boston, I'm out in Western Mass. General Electric had a massive nationwide strike that they won. And it was determined afterwards, GE did a study and they realized, well, these strikers not only getting their strike pay, but because of like the war on poverty and the kind of liberalization of things, they were receiving welfare, general assistance benefits. And, you know, the progressive reforms of the New Deal and the war on poverty were really empowering the working class. And there was tremendous labor radicalism and agitation. And even the union leadership were frequently saying to workers, do not go on strike. You can't do this. It's illegal. And they'd go on strike anyway, you know, informed by, you know, the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, Vietnam Veterans Against the War. I mean, this is all in the background, and these workers are coming to these jobs at the post office or this or that. And they're like, you know what? No, I mean, people are talking about revolution. I don't care. You know, you guys sitting around in the union office smoking cigars, you know, no, we're going on strike, right? So Nixon was also responding to all that. And it's like, well, just change the subject, channel it all into environmentalism, right? So anyway, I'm going on and on and on. But the point is that even a very conservative, reactionary politician like Richard Nixon was forced to do very progressive things because social movements were strong enough and they were also sophisticated enough to be strong. You know, they weren't just like throwing themselves, you know, willy-nilly at the system, but they had they were creating unity and they were making class demands that were very frightening for the elites. And to keep a lot, the elites had to give a little, you know? So that's what we need, more than the right person to run for president. We need a context that's going to force whoever is president to feel that they have no choice but to do some of the right things.